me, Brittany Turner, and welcome to the Mom Energy Podcast. I'm super excited you guys came for today because we're really about to get into personally a subject that I feel like really needs to be talked about more often. Now, of course, before we get started, you know what I'm going to say. I need you guys to please subscribe, like, and share this with everybody. Let's get into it. So, this subject is really, really near and dear to my heart, and it's childhood trauma. The reason why is because I feel like childhood trauma has always been looked at as something that has to happen that was crazy when you were a child. So, like, maybe your parents weren't there, they were killed, or God forbid, or you were raped or sexually assaulted, or your dad wasn't there and you only had a mom, or you lived in bad situations, or just this crazy something crazy that shouldn't be happening in the first place anyway. But I feel like that's always what it looks like when it comes to childhood trauma, and that's not always true. I feel like I had a pretty good childhood. Like, I don't remember wanting for anything. I don't remember having bad Christmases. I don't remember being very like devastated when my parents got divorced. And I don't feel like my mom or anybody did anything that was like super traumatic to me. But I definitely have childhood trauma. I definitely remember certain small things, it may be to other people, but it affected me as I was older a lot. Um, Me wanting to be wanted so bad. And please, please excuse me. I didn't even really beat my face that good. I really didn't want to do it at all because I'm like, I know I'm gonna probably tear up. I'm such a crybaby. Y'all about to get to know a new me. I'm definitely a crybaby. And so just please bear with me throughout this episode. Um, but I feel like as I got older in relationships and in friendships, I felt a need to be wanted. I felt a need to want somebody to want me to be in their space. And I feel like a lot of that came from childhood trauma. I can remember asking my mom about pictures of me as a baby. And I'm like, well, why don't I have any pictures of me? And I'm looking through photo books and I see all these pictures of my brother. Mind you, it's only me and my brother. I have an older brother. He's 3 years older than me. And we have different dads. And I feel like I used to yearn for certain things. Like, why don't I have pictures? Like, where are my pictures? And for me, now that I'm older, instead of my mom saying, like, she did tell me, like, oh, well, I didn't take the pictures of him. My side of the family took the pictures of him. You wasn't really with my side of the family a lot. You was with your dad's side of the family, and you didn't really want to be with them. You wanted to be with your dad's side of the family, so they have your pictures. And I can remember being so sad that my response wasn't different. It wasn't like, oh, well, this is what happened, but you know what? Let's try to make new memories. Let's try to take more pictures now so you don't feel that way. It was kind of like, I'll get over it. I actually remember my mom saying that to me when I talked about how I didn't like my Comcast job because it took me too much away from my kids. It didn't allow me to be at places with them and things like that. And she was like, well, she'll get over it. You got to work. And I'm like, but I don't want her to get over it. I didn't want her to feel that way. I want it to be present because kids don't understand that. They don't understand that you have to work. And they get it, but only to a certain extent. They don't understand that if I don't do this, I don't have no money. If I don't have no money, we can't pay for this house. They don't get it. And so they get time. They get how much they see you. They get how much you show up. And people showing up for me and supporting me has always been a situation for me. I can remember a specific moment. Um, I was literally on the major rated color guard team at Rich Central. And I want to say it was our homecoming game. And this was my senior year. I was co-captain. I was so proud of myself. And I remember wanting my parents at the game. And I don't know why they weren't there or what happened. And I remember seeing them at the end of the show on the side. But I remember throughout the whole performance, I looked for them. I searched for them. And they weren't there. And I couldn't find them. And it made me so sad. And I could remember it. Like, no, it wasn't anything traumatic, but it almost made me grow up yearning for a certain attention and certain want. And then I remember again, I went to college and I danced. And I remember having to go to college over the summer, my freshman year, or going into my freshman year, because I was in a program that was giving me a very big scholarship. So I had to be there for 4 weeks. I was there for 4 weeks. I came back home for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks at the most, maybe 2 weeks. And then I had to go back like 2 weeks early or a week early because I was in band and I had band camp. And I had to be there earlier that year because I had to try out for the dance team to be in band. And so I remember my mom had hurt her leg, so she couldn't drive. My dad had to drive me, and this was my stepdad at the time. And he would have had to drive her down there to come see me. And I remember him saying, like, well, we already had to drive you down there for this program and then had to drive you back to school. And now you want us to come again? That's too much. And I just remember thinking, like, why am I being punished for doing something good? Why am I being punished for going to a program to get a scholarship over the summer instead of being over the summer doing nothing? Why am I being punished for being a part of something so I don't get into nothing else? And it was just like, it hurt my feelings so bad. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. And it was so many things that I look at now, like especially as I look at my daughter and my nieces and things that I'm like, man, I was doing stuff like, I know we say like, man, well, we was listening to this at this age and we were listening to that at this age. But like now that I'm a mom, I would never want my daughter to be listening to Sex in the Kitchen over by the stove. Like, why was I listening to that? And I remember being so infatuated with this boy at the time, listening to that song, and that used to be our song together. And the funny thing about it is, I can't even remember his name till this day. And so sometimes it's about us healing ourselves. And it's messed up because I can't fully blame my parents or anything like that because I feel like maybe they had childhood trauma. Definitely my mom. And it's like they haven't healed. And I feel like that generation and some of us in general suppress things so much and we push it down and we push it down and we don't think about it and we don't pay attention to it and we try to move on from it, but we never really heal from it, and it comes out in other ways. And so I didn't want that for my kids, and I don't want that for my kids, and I'm still healing. I always felt like the outsider, always, no matter if it had to do with aunties and uncles, with my kids, aunties and uncles with their kids, and just all these situations. Even if it was from aunties and uncles and cousins, I, for the longest time, felt like my cousin Crystal was more important than me because she was this light-skinned girl with long hair who parents made her be a Jehovah's Witness. And for a long time, to me, I felt like from my family, because I was more of a tomboy and I like to hang out with boys, but I grew up with a boy. It was only me, my brother, and then I had a stepbrother. So I'm used to being around boys. And I was looked at as the fast one. And I was never doing anything fast like that. I wasn't into anything. I wasn't out here having sex young. And I didn't even know about smoking and drinking really until I got real, like my senior year, junior year in high school. And that's when I learned about it for real. But like, I didn't really do anything until I got to college, as far as stuff like that. And like, it's crazy because I had been looked at so negatively for so long. It was crazy to me. And then it was like, when I got with my husband, like I used to tell him, like, man, why you always look at me so negatively? And like, or why you always think the worst of me? I used to always say that. And it could have been something self-consciously. It could have been what I dealt with as a kid. But I was always looked at negatively. And I hated that because I was not that type of person. I wasn't the kid that liked to wear tube tops. But for some reason, my aunties would give me their old tube tops. And I'm like, when have you ever seen me wear a tube top? I can remember being with my dad's side of the family, and because I wasn't with them all the time, I was like kind of shunned out a little bit. And like once my grandmother died, that's what really showed me the most. Like I didn't really feel it as much when she was here. Not as much, and that's just because she made sure I wasn't feeling that when I spoke to her or when I was spending time with her. But I definitely felt it. And the main reason was because I didn't live primarily with my dad. I lived primarily with my mom. And so my cousins lived with both their parents, which meant that they were over my grandmother's house more. And so now, even as an adult, like I still feel different types of ways. Like I would see all of them out of town kicking it. And I'm like, dang, ain't nobody think to call me, like, and hit me up, like, and say, hey, you want to go out of town on this day and or whatever. And it's like everybody else except for like me and my brother. And maybe because that wasn't my brother's biological family, maybe I'm like, I didn't think if he may have felt the same way. I'm not sure. Maybe he did know, and maybe I just didn't know. But I used to be like, why was I the only one not invited? Like, and it was always like that for me, even as a kid. And so with friends, I pick friends so carefully. I used to hang out with this group of girls, which they're probably, if they ever really watch this, they're going to, people say they watch it, but I could probably count about 5 people who are really close to me who probably going to really watch this through and really support me, even though that they probably watch podcasts all the time or watch stuff that's nonsense all the time. But to really support a friend and watch and hear what I'm saying, I could probably count 5 people that's really going to do that. And I probably can't count 5, and that's sad, but it is what it is. And so, but I decided to start picking my friends differently because I remember having a group of friends. And I remember over the summer, I would be like, dang, I wonder what they doing. And I would call, and it was a group of us. And every single person in the group was at the mall, except for me. And I used to just be like, dang, like, why ain't nobody call me? Like, why y'all didn't hit me up? And it was like, oh, well, it was just a thing that we just end up doing. It was last minute. But for me, in my mind, I'm like, don't none of y'all drive except for me and 2 other people. So everybody else had to be picked up. Ain't nobody decided to call me and be like, y'all want to meet, want to meet us here? So like that deterred my friendship with them. Like it made me look at them differently. It made me move differently. It made me not want to kick it with them. And still to this day, we may talk through social media, but I don't mess with them because for me, I had to feel wanted, and I had to have friends that understood that. And I remember one of the main things that made me and my niece's mother super close. We knew each other in high school. She was actually in my wedding, But it made us super close because I was living in Atlanta maybe a year or two ago. She had this big birthday party. I had just left out there maybe the week or two before her birthday party. And she still called me like, hey, I'm sending you this invitation. I know you just left. I don't think you could come, but I ain't want to not invite you just in case you can make it. And that really meant a lot to me, and it showed me what type of friends I needed in my life. So when we speak about childhood trauma, it's not always something that has to be super traumatic in somebody's life. It could be something that definitely makes them move differently in certain spaces. And so as I grew older and I started listening to my daughter and listening to my husband, and I'm like feeling some type of way about stuff, and I'm like, well, why are you looking at me like this, or why am I looked at like this evil person, or why you give me this type of projection of who I am, or you attacking my character and things like that. And a lot of that stems from things that I felt as a kid and things that I dealt with as a kid that I felt like I should have never dealt with. And what I've learned is it could never be too much time. You can only do what you can do. But I think explaining things to your kids and kind of talking to them more definitely helps, because my daughter just told me today, like, I don't give her a lot of attention. I'm like, really? Like, how don't you get no attention from me? Like, I'm at your school all the time. I go to lunch with you. Like, anytime you ask me, like, and it just really shows that, like, those times with them are really important to them. And I can never give enough time. I had to ask her, like, what you gonna do when I have another kid? Like, you're gonna have to share that time. And I definitely understand the older child syndrome thing, because my daughter has been through things with me that my other kids would never understand. They would never know. They would never know what it's like to be in a salon with me for 8 hours sitting there doing nothing but being on your iPad. They would never understand what it's like to make me want to be a better person. Like, I was living with my mom when I had my daughter, and because of her, I wanted to grind more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to push more. And I had to explain that to her earlier. Like, you have something that other kids that I have will never understand and never have. So always just ask me if you want attention. Just ask for it. I'll give it to you. And if I don't give it to you at that moment, I'll let you know when I can, and we'll make sure we set something up. But it's really about having that communication with your kids. And when they tell you that they feel a certain type of way about something, you have to give a crap. Because I think that was one of my biggest issues with my parents. Like, they didn't give a crap. And I have a good relationship with my dad now, and I think because my dad was there physically, it made it seem like, well, he was there, my dad wasn't there. I ain't have a dad at all. But he wasn't, though. I was with my grandmother. Like, I don't remember my dad making sure I ate, making sure I went to sleep, making sure I got up and did what I needed to do in the morning, like make up my bed or making me breakfast. Like, that was my grandmother. And I only remember seeing him when I needed to ask him to go somewhere else, like down the street or further to a park or something. And I don't remember him spending that quality father daughter time with me either. And I don't have that memory of him. And so, like, even though we have a good relationship now, it took me healing myself. It didn't take him saying something to me, then saying, like, oh, let's grow. It took me healing myself, and I had to change, and I had to adjust to what it was. And then I was able to build a relationship with him after that. But I didn't talk to my dad for almost 2 years. I mean, walking past each other because of certain things, like not coming to my graduation and not coming to my trunk party, all because of whatever him and my mom had beef about or whatever. It's just really traumatic for me. So definitely pay attention to your kids. Definitely pay attention to what they're saying. Definitely take their feelings into consideration. Even if you have to go back after you may have snapped or whatever and be like, I apologize. I shouldn't have snapped. This is why. And kind of just make sure you keep in the communication with them, because it makes so much of a difference. All right, y'all. I know that was a little deep. I'm glad I kept it together for the most part. I hope you guys come back next week. We are 6 episodes in. I'm super excited, and I'll see you guys next episode. Bye.